Coming up tonight on the Neutral Zone, we have a 30-minute special show for you. For women's hockey, we have assistant coach Amanda Mazzota live in studio with Matt McAuliffe. Plus, for men's ice hockey, we have the Yale game coming up this weekend. We'll break that entire thing down for you. Stay with us. Hello, everyone, and welcome into the Neutral Zone. My name's MJ Baird. Alongside me today is women's ice hockey beat reporter Kirby Paulson. Kirby, happy to have you.
Happy to be here, MJ.
All right, Kirby, so we're going to talk some women's ice hockey for the first half of our half-an-hour show special. The playoffs are upon us. The seedings have been decided. Let's check out this past weekend, see how Quinnipiac did, and see what seed they ended up with. Quinnipiac started on Friday night against RPI. Let's take a look. As I said, the Bobcats and the Engineers, this game is up at the TD Bank Sports Center. Sydney Rossman enters this game. Kirby, she's real close to tying a program record in shutouts. So she has 2 games to beat it, 1 to tie, 1 to beat it. We'll see if she can do it. In fact, Quinnipiac playing RPI, as I said before, Taryn Baumgart with a rip from the point on the doorstep. It's Melissa Samaskevich. That's just one of a plethora of shots, Kirby, that Quinnipiac puts on in this game. There's TT Cianfrano with another one. Great pass there for the Bobcats on the power play.
Bobcats dropping a whole lot of shots in this game, MJ.
That's right, 57 shots on net, Kirby. Here's another one, and Megan Turner. That's the kind of play a coach loves to see. Dirty on the doorstep, puts that one in, gives the Bobcats just another goal to add to their lead. It's 3-0 at this point, and Mackenzie Lancaster, second period snipe of a goal there. That was just a beautiful goal from Lancaster. Leads the team with 8 shots on the day. The Bobcats go on to win this game 5-0, Kirby. But really, it's the 0 in the RPI column that matters. Let's see what they do on Saturday night.
Yeah, Saturday night, women's hockey taking on Union. Senior day for the Quinnipiac women's ice hockey team. 7 seniors honored before this game for their efforts over the last 4 years. We're going to jump right ahead to that first period. Union picks off a pass, but again, Sydney Rossman on her game is able to get that shot saved.
Kirby, I was on the call for this game. Sydney Rossman might have only made 9 saves, 10 saves on the day. That was one of the better ones for sure.
Speaking of saves, later in the second period, QU leading 1-0. Sydney Rossman covers the puck up after a defensive stop for Quinnipiac. Again, she's standing tall. Later in that second period, another big save by Rossman to nail down what could have been a 2-on-0 situation at that point. Very dangerous situation. And then, of course, same thing. Later on in the third period, Sydney Rossman with yet another late save to seal that shutout and the program record of 26 career shutouts. What an achievement for a great goaltender.
Absolutely incredible. Someone make sure she saves that puck, because that is definitely memorable, beating out both Chelsea Layden and Victoria Vigilante for that record. 26, Sydney Rossman currently holding that program record, Kirby. Let's talk a little bit about now the ECAC standings. Quinnipiac, of course, finishing up their regular season this past weekend. This is the current ECAC standings, and as you see, Quinnipiac comes in 5th place with 29 points. Only 1 point shy of hosting a first-round game. Instead, though, Quinnipiac is going to have to go play Princeton on the road, the 4 seed. It's the top 8 teams that are going to play in this quarterfinal. What do you see from this matchup? It's a 4-5 matchup, but the Bobcats do have to go on the road.
Well, me and my fellow beat reporter, Matt McAuliffe, were talking about this earlier. I mean, this is one of the best matchups in all of college hockey when it comes down to it. When you look at the statistical numbers, the way these two teams play is so very similar. I really think the performance for the Bobcats hasn't been that bad this season. 13-6-3 record in conference. That doesn't really show a whole lot. But again, against Clarkson 0-2, against Princeton 0-2. I don't know if that's foreshadowing. Who really knows? But again, their defense, one of the best in the country. Their second best defense behind Wisconsin, which is probably the best team in women's college hockey right now.
Absolutely.
And for a team that lost core players in Sydney Rusler, in Lindsay West, this has been a really impressive defense to watch. The offense could definitely use a little bit of improvements going forward. They're going to have to get creative, find ways to get goals into the back of the net. But again, those are improvements that they're going to make as they go. I think this is a fair seeding. Middle of the road conference, this is a good matchup for them.
I think it's interesting that you say, Rusler and West who left, because they were defensemen, and Quinnipiac still, that defense is right up there. Freshmen have stepped in and enhanced that role, kept the Quinnipiac defense as strong as it needs to be. Let's take a look at the NCAA tournament as a whole. We'll check out the pairwise rankings. This is what determines who will make the NCAA tournament. As you can see, the teams in yellow are the teams that, if the season ended right now, would be in the NCAA tournament, Kirby. As you can see, Quinnipiac's at number 10. So this is interesting. If Quinnipiac, they can make the NCAA tournament if they win the ECAC, meaning they'd have to get through Princeton, they'd probably have to get through someone like Clarkson, and then ultimately you got to look at the other side of the bracket, but who are the Bobcats going to beat potentially for the win? Well, what if Quinnipiac knocks off Princeton, maybe gets through Clarkson, and then loses in the ECAC finals? Well, they might have just enough RPI points to climb into the top 8, and that might put them in the NCAA tournament. You think that's feasible?
I'm going to answer your question with another question, MJ. What's more unpredictable than love? Playoff hockey.
That's right.
You never really know how it's going to go. Now, this is a Quinnipiac team that plays with a whole lot of heart and a whole lot of grit. They might not have the statistical offensive numbers that they did last year. Again, players like TTC and Ferrano not performing up to standards that they thought they were going to set. But you got to remember, their entire message this season is that they've been wanting to play the best hockey they've played all season towards the end of the season. Let's take it back to 2 weeks ago. They played teams like St. Lawrence and Clarkson, two of the best teams in the country. They tie one of them in St. Lawrence, lose to Clarkson 1-0,
Yep.
but they only give up a grand total of 2 goals allowed combined between those two matchups.
Right.
That's a confidence booster for the defense. Again, the offense, they're going to have to find ways to get pucks in the net when they're playing these bigger, top nationally ranked teams. But in terms of goaltending as well, that's a great goaltending performance for Sidney Rossman. All the people that have been saying, hey, let's put Abby Ives in net. Why put Ives in net when Rossman's been on fire lately? And after having a performance like that, even with that Clarkson loss, how much of that can you put on her? So it shows the importance of these performances in big matchups like that.
Kirby, let's take a look at the other teams that are playing in the ECAC quarterfinals. It's not just Quinnipiac and Princeton, of course. We have other big matchups, Clarkson and RPI. You have Cornell and Colgate up there too, St. Lawrence and Yale. So these are also some other big matchups. And of course, it's going to depend on what seeds win and move on. But, Cornell, Colgate, those are travel partners. They don't have to go far. That could be an interesting matchup.
That's one heck of a series right there. We were talking about it earlier. A lot of us expect that to go 3 games. I mean, they're both pretty fast teams, but you never really know how that's going to play out. Now, let's say we expect Clarkson and St. Lawrence to come out on top, but you never know. I mean, Quinnipiac and RPI had a heck of a series last season, so you really just don't know with playoff hockey. I think expectations are a little high, but you got to remember anything can happen.
For sure, Kirby. So, Women's Ice Hockey beat reporter Phil Akery, he's standing by with us. He has a report card for the 2016-2017 season for your Quinnipiac Women's Ice Hockey team. Phil, what do you got for us?
Hey, thanks a lot, MJ. So I'm going to give a quick recap of all the aspects of the Quinnipiac Women's Ice Hockey team, as in offense, defense, and special teams. As for offense, I'm going to give this unit a B-. Solid overall for the most part. They were 5th in the ECAC in goals per game. They averaged about 2.5, just over 2.5 goals per game, and they were 5th in the ECAC as well in goals scored all season at 90. And obviously they had the band back together, as head coach Cass Turner likes to call them, meaning Melissa Samuskevich, Emma Woods, and TT Ferrano. They were the top 3 goal getters for this team. But more to Coach Turner's delight, 5 players had double-digit goals this season, and 11 players had double-digit points. Now, as for the defense, I'm going to give this unit an A-. Assistant coach Amanda Mazzotta did a fantastic job with this unit. Once again, they were tops in the ECAC when it came to goals allowed per game, just over a goal at 1.27. They were also tops in the ECAC in goals allowed all season, just 44. The goaltending duo of Abby Ives and Sidney Rossman combined for a save percentage of .929. And also, there were some key playmakers, including Katie Tabin, a freshman from Canada. She's proven herself. She started nearly every game from the get-go at the start of the season. Cass Turner has voiced her confidence in her many times, and she's a huge building block for this team for the next 3 years. But as for the special teams, I'm going to give this unit an A as well. Assistant coach Eddie Ardito did a great job with this unit. Again, one of the best coaches in the ECAC when it comes to the special teams and the power play and the PK. But speaking of the power play, Quinnipiac was 4th, tied with Princeton in power play goals in the season with 22. That comes to a percentage of 19, which is 2nd, again, right behind Princeton in the ECAC. And their PK, the penalty kill, was 3rd in ECAC and 88%. Cass Turner loves the special teams this season. She said it multiple times, multiple occasions in the pressers. But as we all know, Quinnipiac is going to face the Princeton Tigers in the first round of the playoffs. My predictions, I think the Tigers are going to take this series 2-1 over the Bobcats for a number of reasons. Quinnipiac lost on the road to Princeton 3-2 earlier in the year, and they got shut out at home 3-0 in front of a big crowd. Those are 2 pretty demoralizing losses. So, of course, Quinnipiac can come out with a little edge to themselves, but it's on the road, 2 consecutive games, could be 3. I don't think Quinnipiac's going to show up because they haven't shown that they can show up and play against these big teams in the big moments like this. And Princeton also has Kelsey Colzer, the nation's best prospect, best scorer in the country. I think they're going to show up and take it, but stranger things have happened, guys. Back to you at the desk.
Phil, thank you so much. I'm not sure if I can agree with you on the Princeton prediction. I think I have Quinnipiac in 3 games, so I can agree with you on the 3 games part. But our other women's ice hockey beat reporter, Matt McAuliffe, is standing by in the piazza with women's ice hockey assistant coach Amanda Mazzotta. Matt, take it away.
Thank you, guys. Alongside of me, I have assistant coach for the women's ice hockey team, Amanda Mazzotta. Amanda, thank you for joining me.
Thanks for having me.
So, Amanda, we're going to do a little segment that we like to do on Neutral Zone called By the Numbers.
All right.
So I'm going to give a number. It's going to be a stat. I'll explain it, and then you'll help me out with a question.
Sure.
So I'm going to start with a background. You have been in 3 Frozen Fours. You were a goalie at Cornell. You have much experience in between the pipes. So how has that experience helped at the collegiate level with coaching?
It's been really helpful. I think, when you go into those Frozen Fours, it's always a little bit nerve-wracking, and the first one we went kind of as an underdog. So been to the Frozen Four as an underdog, a team that wasn't supposed to be there at all. So had that experience, and then the second year, my junior year, we kind of went in with the target on our back. I think we were second in the country going into that tournament. So had some experience with that. Being the team to sort of beat at the Frozen Four, and then senior year again we were ranked pretty high. So by then, every Frozen Four is a little bit different, but you know what it's like to be there. So I think that's helped a lot with coaching, just from everything from what to expect in the playoffs to nerves to finding a way to play your best hockey when it matters most. But Cass has been in those same experiences too. So we're lucky to have that experience on our staff.
So let's jump right into By the Numbers. So
All right.
my first stat I have is 26. 26 is the number of shutouts that Sydney Rossman has had, and that's the franchise record now for the Quinnipiac program. So Amanda, what is it like coaching Sid and coaching a historic goalie now?
You know what? She's a pretty incredible person. She just has this quiet confidence about her and the willingness to put the work in every day. And I think those 2 things combined together just have created this fantastic goaltender, and I've had very little to do with it. She was fantastic before I got here. I think I just arrived at the right time, which was great, but she's just been a pleasure to work with, and she's willing to look at game film, figure out what needs to be better, and find a way to make it better all the way up until last run at playoffs here in her senior year. So it's been a lot of fun.
So my second number is 1.43, which is currently Sydney Rossman's goals against average, and that is good for 4th in the nation among 41 goalies. And kind of to bounce off what I asked you last time, what is her, because being a goalie is half mental, half physical, what is her mental and physical aspects that makes her so good?
She's a battler. Like, she, even in practice, if players are hanging around the net and trying to dish empty pucks into the net, she won't let them. So I think she's got that battle mentality, but her biggest strength, I think, is just her mental focus and her ability to bounce back and be strong mentally. You get a lot of goalies that are, quirky, or you worry about their mental toughness, and, I have no worries with Sid.
So now I'm going to focus and swing it towards your defense now, because you specialize in goalies and defense. Your defense, and my third number, is 1.32. That is the goals against for your defense. And that is good for 2nd in the nation. The only team better than you is the number 1 team in the country, Wisconsin.
Right.
So having such a great defense and goalie, but specifically your defense with the 1.32, what goes on in practice with your defense, and what makes your defense just as strong?
I think Cass is just such an incredible coach. Like, the way that she coaches team defense, I think, is second to none. And the way that she, has our team take so much pride in the tiny little details that, I don't know that a lot of other teams are focusing on, I think is what kind of created this culture of team defense. Whether it's the forwards understanding that if they forecheck well in the offensive zone, then the puck doesn't even get into our end. If we wedge people out at the red line and transition and go on offense, then, there's nothing in our end. And having even numbers at our net and picking up sticks, it's so ingrained in our older players, and that's the fun part every year, is getting the younger players on board with just the pride that we take in keeping pucks out of our net.
Well, Amanda, thank you for playing along with me by the numbers.
No problem.
Once again, Amanda Mazzotta, I'm Matt McAuliffe. Thank you for joining me, and back to you guys at the desk.
Matt, thank you so much. Kirby, thank you for coming on. Thank Phil Akey for coming on as well. Kirby, Matt, and Phil are all going to be going to the Quinnipiac vs. Princeton series this weekend down in New Jersey, so make sure to check them out on social media and, of course, on Quinnipiac's Q30's website at q30television.com. Kirby, it's great to have you.
Always a pleasure, MJ. Should be a great weekend of hockey.
Stick around. After the break, Kyle Lavasser will be joining me. We'll talk all things men's ice hockey plus the Quinnipiac vs. Yale men's ice hockey rivalry. Stick around.
Coming up on Bobcat Breakdown.
Coming up on Bobcat Breakdown.
And welcome into Studio 125.
So what?
40
So what?
points. If you score 40 points in a basketball game, we all know you play Quinnipiac intramurals. We all know you love to shoot the rock.
Well, if you think that's the most ridiculous thing you've ever heard, what I'm about to say, I guess, is going to be pretty ridiculous in your book. But I'm going to say, yes, there is a controversy.
Line, getting ready to punch the ball as it lands right in front of another Monmouth player.
Coming up, coming up, coming up.
Coming up on hashtag that.
We are your source for Quinnipiac's entertainment news. All this and more.
Coming up on the Q30 newscast.
Hello, Quinnipiac hockey fans, and welcome to the Neutral Zone.
Definitely St. Lawrence, and I think you're going to see the test coming up real soon.
They might be having a bit of an adjustment issue without that CBS line, but don't count them out.
At High Point Solutions Arena in Game 2 of Quinnipiac vs. Northeastern Series.
Thanks for sticking with us here on the Neutral Zone. I'm joined now by men's ice hockey beat reporter Kyle Lavasser. Kyle, happy to have you on the desk.
Hey, thanks for having me, MJ.
Not a problem, Kyle. So we'll talk all things men's ice hockey now for the second half of this show. Quinnipiac had Union and RPI this past weekend like the women did, except the men's team was on the road for both games. Let's check out how they did. On Friday night, it was Quinnipiac and Union up in Schenectady, New York. Messer Rink, the infamous, as we like to call it, Kyle.
Union, definitely one of the best teams in the conference. I think the best team Quinnipiac has faced this year.
Absolutely, Kyle. And the Bobcats turned the puck over behind the net, and I said this the other night, I'll say it again. When teams turn over the puck, good teams will exploit it, and that's what Union did there. Union goes up to the 1-0 lead. And Kyle, this is just 32 seconds later, it's another goal for Union.
Yeah, we saw this earlier in the year. Chris Truel again, when we both went to the Harvard game up in Boston. Similar thing, Chris Truel lets up 3 goals in 50 seconds. This time it's 1 minute and 10 seconds.
Yeah, well, 1:08 actually, Kyle. Let me just make it a little bit worse. And here's the third goal of that. Spencer Fruit, great patience in the high slot. He makes it 3-0 Union. The goal was reviewed, though. Confirmed, of course. 3-0 Union at this point in the game. We'll head to the second period, Kyle. All that's coming in the first period. Chris Truel gets pulled from the game. Andrew Shortridge gets pulled in. Quinnipiac again, though, as you can see, only 3 skaters on the ice. They were in penalty trouble all game. Union scores on the 4-on-3 here. Mike Vecchione, Kyle.
Wow, he can do some things. I think the Hobies coming back up to Schenectady, New York. Whether it's Spencer Fu, Mike Vecchione, two of the best players in the country, MJ.
Absolutely, Kyle. Union really runs away with this game, beats the Bobcats by a final score of 4-1. But really, let's take a look at the ECAC standings. Oh, I'm sorry, Kyle, we got one more game.
Yeah, there was another game, MJ. A Saturday night, only a half-hour drive down the road to Troy, New York. And here in the first period, Nick Germain is going to put one on net. And what happens there? The RPI goalie, Chase Perry, just lets it in. He finished with an 83.3 save percentage today. Here it is. Nick Germain is, again, his 3rd goal of the year. Trapper side, it just gets right by, squeaks right through.
You know what they say, put shots on net from anywhere, you will get rewarded.
And Connor Clifton does that right here, just in front of the blue line. That's got to be at least 60 feet out, MJ.
That's a ripper.
A clap, he does that all season long. That's his bread and butter, the slap shot from the point. Connor Clifton's going to put up Quinnipiac 5-2. We're going to go here in the 3rd period, and MJ, This D unit has just been providing so much offense. Here it's Kevin McKernan with the goal, but Connor Clifton, we saw his goal earlier. Carlos Chuxa also had a goal in the game. Quinnipiac would go on to win 7-3.
7 goals is a big, comeback performance for a team that just lost 4-1. Granted, they were playing the best team in the ECAC at the time, but perhaps a little bit of a confidence boost heading into this weekend.
Absolutely.
So, Kyle, after this past weekend has come, full circle, let's take a look at the ECAC standings, see where the Bobcats currently stand. Well, as you can see, they're sitting in the 5 spot, 23 league points. The top 4 teams, remember, are going to get a first-round bye in the ECAC playoffs. That's Union, Harvard, Cornell, and St. Lawrence. So if the season ended right now, Quinnipiac would be playing in the first round. However, the game would be at home.
But the season doesn't end today,
That's
and
right.
we have 2 important games this weekend. If you look at the standings, if Quinnipiac does sweep this upcoming weekend and St. Lawrence does get swept, they will get that first-round bye. Something I don't think either of us would have even thought a couple weeks ago.
Yeah, Kyle, it's funny how it's still mathematically possible that Quinnipiac does, get 4 points this weekend, and if St. Lawrence gets 0 points, the Bobcats could still get that first round bye, which I don't think anyone would expect. We talked to Tim and Connor Clifton earlier in the week. They said we just got to focus on what we can control.
Yeah, I think it's more important that they just get on a roll now. I think sometimes the hotter teams going into the playoffs is more important than who's the better team. Sometimes a hotter team, look at Yale in the 2012-2013 National Championship.
Right.
They're the last team to get into the national tournament. They're the 16th out of 16 teams to get into that national tournament. They go in and win the entire thing against Quinnipiac, who was absolutely better than them that year. They beat them 3 times earlier in the season, but they're the hotter team going into it. So, hey, we'll see what happens.
Kyle, you bring up the national tournament, so let's take a look at the national standings, the USAHO.com pairwise rankings, that is. This determines, again, who does make the NCAA tournament. And, Kyle, the teams in yellow on this graphic, those teams are, you see only 3 of them here. This is the second half of the standings, of course, but the top 16 are the teams that do get a bid to the NCAA tournament, give or take any teams that win their conference. So you see Quinnipiac sitting down at 21.
Way down there.
Yeah, they're going to struggle to get inside the top 16.
Yeah, they're definitely going to have to win the ECAC tournament if they're going to want to make it to the national tournament.
Quinnipiac 17-13-2, good for tie for 21st. It's funny to think a Quinnipiac team that, comparing to last year's standards, isn't really performing, is still a top 20, give or take 1 team in the nation.
Yeah, if you consider how much they lost last season and they were ranked the number 1 team through the majority of the season, you would think, wow, falling all the way to 21 is, a bit of a down year. It's disappointing. But when you look at how much they lost, they lose their top 2 goal scorers in Sam Annis and Travis St. Dennis. They lose their goaltender in Michael Gartig. They lose their best defenseman, Devon Tays. You can't really blame them for dropping that much. And I think it just speaks volumes to how great of a coach Rand Pecknold is, and how he's still keeping them a competitive team.
Okay, Kyle, so this weekend is the ever-anticipated Quinnipiac versus Yale game. This is an absolutely huge rivalry between the 2 teams. Kyle, you have a package on this rivalry. We went down to Yale a couple weeks ago to film some of this. Let's check it out.
The Bobcats and the Bulldogs, only 20 minutes separates 2 of the top perennial teams in the ECAC. But does the distance and a national championship matchup from just a few years ago resonate in a rivalry? I'm here at Ingalls Arena in New Haven to find out.
I'd say definitely. It's 2 really close schools, and we see a lot of them. They come to our campus a lot, and to be honest, they get in the way a little bit. So we love it when we get to play them in some sports,
Oh, this game is crazy. I was actually at this game last year. I'm a freshman. I was at this game on my visit, and it was wild. So I'm excited for it.
Anytime 2 schools are right down the road from each other, there's going to be a rivalry. And back in 2013, when they played each other in the national championship, it gave even more fuel to the rivalry. So it's definitely very heated.
I think that there's a big rivalry, really. Most Thursday nights at Box, there's a competition who can make a larger mess in the stall. And Quinnipiac often wins that, so I think that we could really get a necessary W out of this game.
Oh, they're electric. You can feel it. They don't like us, we don't like them, and we don't like the fact they steal our tickets, too. These games sell out real quick,
Have you ever been to a Quinnipiac Yale game before?
Yeah. I've been here. Quinnipiac Yale game here a lot also.
Yeah. And who has the better team?
Quinnipiac.
The tickets sell out within seconds for our home game, and here I had a tough time getting tickets, and I feel like there's a pretty big rivalry. They play pretty intense on the ice.
Ultimately they're taking over our spaces. Here on campus, we have a couple bars we like to go to, and they're taking those over. We got Box, we got Toads. They infiltrate that
well, every time you want to go to a bar, go to a party, whatever, they're always in line, and we got to get around them, you know. We don't like QPAC that much, to say the least.
It's like any great rivalry game in college.
You know, we win this fight, we win the fight for New Haven, so that's what matters.
Well, Kyle, Quinnipiac students get in the way.
Oh, biggest game of the year, MJ. They love it. Spend hours outside waiting to get in line for the games. It's a whole event trying to get tickets. I mean, biggest game of the year by far.
Oh my God, absolutely crazy. The servers crash in years past. This year, actually, though, was pretty good.
Yeah,
so,
they did a
Kyle,
good job.
basically, bottom line.
Yes.
What are your predictions in this game, and what is going to make the difference for both sides?
MJ, there are only 2 teams Quinnipiac is unbeaten against since they lost in the national championship. RPI is one of them. They historically smack. I mean, they won 7-3 this past week against them. The other team is Yale. The only other team that they're unbeaten against since that national championship loss. They just play differently against the Yale Bulldogs. I mean, we just talked about how much of an event it is. I think the players really just turn their game up, and they love playing against their crosstown rivals. No one on this current Quinnipiac roster has ever lost to Yale before. They don't know how to lose to them, and I think in a weekend that is this important where they really need 4 points, they're going to turn their game up. I think leaders on this team, such as Tim and Connor Clifton, we both talked to them at Media Day on Monday, and you could just tell how important this weekend is to them and how much they need these points. And if they're going to want to win, which I feel like they will, they need to do 2 things. They need to score, and then they need to shut down Yale's elite goal scorers. So with scoring, during this unbeaten stretch that I just mentioned against Yale, Quinnipiac averages 3.78 goals per game against Yale. So they have to continue that offensive onslaught. It absolutely is when they're only averaging 3 goals per game this season. So when they're almost averaging 3/4 of a goal more, it shows in the win category.
There's definitely something else there, some ulterior motive.
Absolutely. And then they took advantage on the power play last time against Yale. They had 9 power play opportunities for 3 power play goals, so they do that. As for shutting down the elite goal scorers, they're really going to have to shut down Frankie DiChiara and John Hayden, 2 of Yale's top goal scorers. DiChiara scored 2 goals last time against Quinnipiac. He has 19 points on the year. But look at John Hayden. He leads the ECAC in power play goals with 10 on the year. That's more than some of the elite goal scorers in the country, more than Spencer Fu, more than Mike Vecchione, more than Riley Bermade, more than Tim Clifton.
Wow.
He has 30 points this year. So if they shut him down on the power play, I think everything else is going to fall in place for Quinnipiac.
So, Kyle, we're talking about this Yale game. It's absolutely huge, but the Bobcats have a game Saturday. It's against Brown. Is there a chance Quinnipiac and this whole entire team could overlook Brown?
No, they will not overlook Brown. Great coaches like Grant Peckel don't allow that on this team. They take it one game at a time. That's something they stress every single week. They don't look past any game, and they really realize how much they need these 4 points to get a first-round bye in the ECAC playoffs, and more importantly, get on a roll going into the playoffs. I mean, Brown sometimes has given Quinnipiac trouble, but I really think this is a point in the season that they understand how important this game is. They're playing at home, and when they only beat Brown earlier in the year 1-0, I think that was a wake-up call for them to say, hey, we can't just take these lighter teams that lightly.
Kyle, I think it's interesting, too. Quinnipiac has been somewhat of a worse team on the second night of 2-game home and homes or home and aways, whatever it is, on the Saturday night of a Friday and Saturday night game series. So I think that's very interesting. Kyle, that's all the time we have today on our Neutral Zone. Thank you for joining me.
Hey, thanks for having me, MJ.
So, Kyle, our half-hour special, I'd say it went pretty good. What do you think?
Yeah, it was a lot of fun. Got to do it again sometime.
Playoff season is right around the corner for the women, for the men's team, and for the women. Kyle, it's already here. It starts this Friday. Don't forget, Friday night, Quinnipiac versus Yale. We have our Bobcat game day. Kyle is your host, producer, everything, whatever you want to call it. He's putting this entire thing together. You won't want to miss it. Friday night.
And you'll be on the desk, MJ,
I
for the
will.
pregame show up at the TD Bank Sports Center.
That's right, outside the TD Bank. Before the game, intermission reports down here in the media suite. We'll have all your coverage on Q30 TV on YouTube. Thank you so much for joining us today on the Neutral Zone. Check out more of our content on social media at Q30 Sports and, of course, on our website, Q30television.com. Thanks for checking in. We'll see you next time.